Today is Thursday, February 9th in the Town Hall meeting room. It is now 7:09. We have a quorum. First order of business is to introduce ourselves. My name is Carl Hummel. I'm the chair.
Bob Sweet.
Susan Cahalan, co-chair.
Peter Coffin.
I have a sign-up sheet out in the front by the doorway. It would be very helpful if you're able to sign in, because then when I'm preparing the minutes, I can make sure I spell people's names and get their addresses correctly. So we will be starting the public hearing part of the meeting in 5 minutes. We have a couple of things to deal with. The first one is that the hearing for 3537 Hastings, 1820 Washington Street, DEP 2180831. We received a letter from the applicant, John Nienart and Associates, Kevin Neum and Associates, that they are asking for a continuance tonight. They did receive their information from Mass DEP last Friday, and their engineer is now preparing the plans. So we expect we will be taking that matter up in our next meeting in 2 weeks. Is there anyone here for 7375 Blackstone, either to present on it or audience members? Peter, 73 and 75
Yes.
Blackstone. Okay, great, you're here for that. Because I messed up, 106 Millville should have been on the agenda because we did a continuance from last meeting. Unfortunately, as I was busy transcribing things, and this is the first time I'm actually preparing the agenda, I inadvertently dropped it off. Is there anyone in the audience here to discuss that who is interested? Yes, you're there. Because I didn't have the notice in the public hearing, we will have time in the meeting to hear a presentation, but we will just hear the new information that you had, and then we will continue that again until the next meeting. Since I wasn't able to get it posted adequately, I don't want to have a discussion on it, but he does have some information that I want to get into the record and would be available for the next meeting. I take it the rest of the people here for 23 Cape Road? Okay. Is there anyone here for, okay, so I'll get that out of the way first. An update on our search for a new clerk so that we have someone else to help me with all of this paperwork. We interviewed an applicant, but he was determined not to be an appropriate fit, so the job posting will be extended, and we are going to seek to reach out to several other job boards and postings to see if we can get someone in to do the. So if you know anyone who would be interested in 10 hours a week, part-time, $30 an hour, skills needed, familiarity with the computer, knowledge of paperwork, and ability to work with us, please contact me or Shelley, the HR person. I will hold off on reviewing the correspondence until after the meeting. In addition to what's printed in the agenda, we received a couple of emails after that was posted that I will have notifications about. All right. One thing that I think we can talk about in the next 2 minutes. The Board of Health has reached out to us because they are interested in having a joint meeting with us. We would both post agendas, and it would be done on a Tuesday night, February 21st. And the reason is because that way their board can make it, our board can make it, and we can have Dan Beyer, who's head of Parks and Recreation. He's there because he's very interested in having the beach function properly during the summer. So the agenda would be to discuss creating a Lake Nipmuc task force to follow up on the lake study that we had done previously. Are there people who would would not, of the three of you, would you not be able to make it on Tuesday, the 21st?
Sounds good to me.
I should be okay.
Okay, so we will see about getting that posted and having that meeting set up. In terms of distribution of the workload until we get a new clerk, the arrangement is that I will be doing the agenda, the minutes, monitoring the mailbox for the Concom mailbox, and monitoring the voicemail and trying to keep track of all of the paperwork requests. Susan has volunteered, because I twisted her arm, to deal with the back-end paperwork and processing all of the documentation that we're supposed to output after people come to us asking for things, and working to make sure they're entered into the Mass DEP system and available for people to pick up and do the appropriate processing.
Yeah, so I set up my own account, so
Okay.
it should be verified in a couple of days.
Okay, I want to check on that. We have an existing Mendon account that's been used in the past.
Yeah, but I went in, it only went to 2021. It was only
That's
showing.
because, yeah, well, no one was using it since then, so we may want to get back into using it.
Okay.
And one of the
Well, you
jobs
have
of
to,
a
really,
future
yeah.
clerk, who is a actual agent and not just a clerk, may be to find all of those 2021 to 2023 records and import them into that same database so that they're searchable.
Yeah.
All right, so, Bob is volunteered to take point on the Lake Nipmuc work. When we have that joint meeting, the expectation is there would be a task force set up. He would be the liaison for that task force, and people working with the Lake Nipmuc Association and other people who are interested in that part of our conservation and resource area. All right, it is now 7:16. I will open the public hearing section of the meeting. My expectation is that I want to hear from 106 Millville first. If you can come forward and say what your new information is. I figure this should only be about 5 minutes, and this way he doesn't have to wait around for a long time. And then Peter, I would do you next for the same reason. So do you recognize any of these agenda files? Are they similar? No? Okay. Nope, I don't have anything in there. One of the things I will be working on making happen next time. Okay, so I'll just go back to the agenda. Okay.
All right, so my name is Tom Schutz with Goddard Consulting, and I'm here on behalf of 106 Millville Road to just give a quick update on things that we discussed last hearing and try and clarify some things. So the first thing I was asked is where the stockpiles will be located. We've discussed two possible locations that could be used if one location gets a little bit too large. We're also exploring a third possibility that's not on here. It actually occurred to me while driving here, so I need to discuss with the attorney on that option before we put it in the public record. So the first one is on this property that's located to the south of the barn, and that is just existing lawn right now outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. And we'll take a look at what our stockpile is going to look like after we finish up with this. The second one is in between the existing barn and then the existing building. That area is kind of locked off from any runoff running into either the wetland or kind of running back into the area where the dirt was taken from in the first place. So that does seem like a safe option to me as well.
You mind a quick question there? Or,
No,
no question.
Not a public hearing because I didn't get it posted.
We were also asked to put together something that would be put over top of the stockpiles.
Yep.
So this is what the measures that we came up with, and it's essentially just a fabric material that would go over top of it, and it's overlapping, so we wouldn't have any of the actual silt runoff, and it'd be held down by sandbags and anchored at the bottom. And we would have a siltation fence, which we'll show you in a second, that would run around the entire perimeter of the stockpile. And lastly, here's just a diagram of what our stockpile is going to look like with a erosion control barrier description at the top here. So we're using siltation fence as we talked about before with a straw wattle on the bottom. The stockpile will be a maximum height of 35 feet, and that's the actual maximum. And with that, we'll have a maximum of a 1 to 3 slope in that area. And again, encompassed by a silt fence all the way around, so we have no runoff or siltation into the wetlands. And that will also be covered by the fabric as we talked about before.
Okay.
So that is the end of my brief update, and then we will come back at the next hearing. And by then, we'll also probably have the siltation fence all the way in, because I think we discussed that the date for the siltation fence being in was the day after the following hearing. So that will all be all set up, and that'll just encompass the limit of work.
Okay, and in the minutes that I reviewed, the current plan is that the erosion control will be in place by February 24th, earthwork by March 31st, planting seeding with a wildflower grass mix by April 14th, monitoring to be done during spring, fall with the final evaluation after the growing season in 2024.
Correct, yes.
Okay. So because of my screw up, there is no issue with the part of the plan for putting in the erosion control. So therefore, in order to make the February 24th date, you should feel confident in doing that. After you have completed putting in the wattle and the siltation fence, if you could send an email or a voicemail, and then I would notify the commissioners who were interested that they could go out and inspect that had been completed before you begin earthworks on after February 24th.
Okay, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a suggestion?
Yep.
Will you look at the name of the street on that plan?
Oh, it does seem to be incorrect on there.
Linden Street.
Okay, we'll fix that.
Should be Millville.
I think there was also a discrepancy with an abutter name on here as well, so we'll just have to get those fixed. And it's just taking a little while for the engineer to come up with some of that stuff. They're just a bit backed up right now.
Yep, and if you're able to get those updated, mail them to Concom, and then I'll stick them in the folder for the next meeting. And then in addition to you having a presentation there, I'll be able to do a screen share.
Okay, perfect, yeah, we can do that.
Or I'll get Susan to do the screen share if she ends up being person in charge of Teams section part of the meeting. All right, thank
Thanks.
you for showing up, and I'm
Absolutely.
sorry that we aren't able to actually discuss the text of the enforcement order, but this will not block you from meeting your timetable.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay. The next one, Peter Lavoie, 73 and 75 Blackstone. We did conduct a site walk and inspected the area. The purpose of the presentation today is to get an update from him based on the comments from the Mass DEP when they granted the numbers. What are they called?
Issued the numbers.
Issued the number. It's the Mass. Is it called the Mass DEP number, or is there a real official name for them? The permit number, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so just for the record, my name's Peter Lavoie. I work with D&L Design Group. Like Carl said, we had a site walk last Wednesday, and we made some changes to the plan per that site walk. I do have plans if you want to, large plans if you want to look at them.
What I'd ask, as I said, if you can mail them to concom@mendonma.gov, the address is on the town website, then I can stick them in a SharePoint folder.
Okay.
I'll be managing that. If you have paper copies, then Susan will take them and we'll try and fit them into our filing system, paper filing system.
Okay.
They'll live in my living room somewhere.
Peter, do you mind if I grab one just to follow along with? Mike?
Yeah, no problem. So I have, there's one for each lot. There's only 3. Yeah, there's two plans in there. So the first one is 73 Blackstone Street. So what we did on this plan is we just added the potential 100 and 200 foot riverfront.
Yep.
So the potential 100 is here, and the 200 foot riverfront is right here. So
Yeah, 273.
we're not proposing any disturbance within the potential riverfront area on lots on 73 Blackstone Street. So there is
Okay.
zero disturbance in the riverfront area.
Okay. The Mass DEP comments, did you address that in this updated plan?
I did by adding the riverfront. That was basically their only comment. We still feel that it's an intermittent stream because of stream stats, the drainage area, the peak flow, and the determination, which is adjacent to this property. But we did put the potential riverfront area on there, and we did design this lot to meet the requirements of the riverfront.
Okay, so covering both bases.
Correct.
Any questions from Concom?
I think that was the main thing from Tim's point. So you're saying that the only thing for the 200 is if you keep out of the buffer? Because weren't they asking for that's kicked in a new study required? I think.
No, so if DEP commented if we wanted to, it was our burden to prove that it was an intermittent stream.
Okay, and you're not going there.
Well, we would like the ability, when it dries and it's not in a drought, that we could come back and change if it doesn't qualify as a river. But right now, this lot is designed as it is riverfront. We're not disturbing there's no disturbance within 200 feet of the stream. So we're outside of the riverfront area. The only disturbance for this project is in the buffer zone, and we meet all your setbacks and requirements in the buffer zone disturbance.
I brought up the email from Mass DEP if you want to come over and take a look at the screen and see what the actual text is.
Yeah, because you're saying you're doing work in the buffer?
Just a 100-foot buffer from the wetland.
100-foot buffer from the wetland, but that's not from the stream or the river?
No, the stream is over here.
Okay, so it's a different wetland.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Where's the wetland?
It's up on the screen. When we went on the site walk, there's an unnamed tributary to the named perennial stream. The question is whether the unnamed tributary is perennial or intermittent. And so in order to, Mass DEP is asking that we consider it a perennial stream, and without actually having either of us say whether it is one or the other, the applicant has agreed to prepare a plan as if it were 200. Is that?
Correct. DEP mentioned that they said that Springbrook is a perennial stream, and it is shown up on the geodetic as a dark blue line.
A dark blue line, which-
Yes. So we're considering Springbrook as a perennial,
Yes.
potential perennial. So we've designed the site that Springbrook is a perennial stream, but the intermittent stream that is a lighter blue,
Yes.
that is a lighter blue. That's not a perennial.
Right. That's the.
And like I said, the only work on 73 Blackstone is buffer zone from the man-made swale that was dug here, and that's the only disturbance. So we're not proposing any disturbance within the 25-foot. There's no structure within the 50-foot. So it's just, all it is, basic disturbance within the buffer zone.
Okay.
There was a question that at the last meeting that someone wanted to look at that man-made
Yeah.
trench.
We looked at it. It's deep.
Yeah, it's like 6 to 8 feet that they dug. So basically they dug into groundwater back there, and that's why. And then over time, it gets wet and vegetation has grown in the bottom of there, and that's why it was flagged as a BVW.
My only question is, are there perimeter drains?
There are perimeter drains, yes.
Are they outfall?
This perimeter drain is right there. It's outside of the 100-foot.
Okay.
It's roughly, like 30 feet from the left-hand side of the house.
Well, thank you for marking it. Thank you. That's.
Well, Kyle made a comment at the site walk that you would ask.
Oh, yeah. that's
So,
one of the
made
things to
sure.
Look at that and making sure that when you're digging a well, you have a,
Yep, we have a well pit right next to the well.
all right, any further questions about 73? Okay, it's time for a motion to accept the NOI.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal as submitted with our normal details on the well.
Yep. So this is for 73 Blackstone.
For
Is there a
73
second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Bob Sweet, aye. Peter, aye. Susan, you, aye.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
sorry, yes.
Okay, passes unanimously. We're now ready to go on to
75. Okay, so 75 was a little bit trickier.
Yep.
So the blue hatch right here is Springbrook. So we have our first 100 foot. And then we have our second. So that's 200 feet from the stream that was flagged. So what we did is we relocated the driveway to the high side out of the riverfront area totally. We revised the grading around the house, so now this is a walkout, so there's no grading. We moved the septic up like 7 feet, so there's only a little bit of disturbance within the 100-foot buffer to the wetland. There's no disturbance within the first 100 feet of the riverfront. The second 100 feet, we basically have 9,047 square feet. The total riverfront area for the project is 103,572. And that comes to 8.7% of riverfront. So we meet the 10% that DEP requires.
Okay.
And we do show an under drain goes right to the silt fence. The discharge goes right there.
Mr. Chair, both of these lots, not only is it a perennial stream, but it's also cold water fishery.
Correct.
So the only thing I'm aware that is enhanced is the amount you've got to infiltrate. Are there other things that should be addressed for cold water fisheries?
Normally, cold water fisheries, what you have to deal with if you're going to cross it, there's more restrictions to that or anything that you're going to impact it directly. So we're not cutting any trees down for this project within the area, so temperature wouldn't change.
On the sidewalk, we saw that it's a big clearing where the.
Yeah, it's a big open field where they had their goats. So that's been kept cut, and this is, so you see this different color? That is the field.
Yep.
And then you have the color, so there's a stone wall, there's a little bit of vegetation, and then across the front. So the only thing we're cutting in is right through here, there's a utility pole right there, and you can see that's where the driveway is gonna go in. So this basically, most of all the pavement is outside of the riverfront. The house, which will be recharged into 2 recharge areas, is within the second 100 feet. But that will take into account the infiltration of the house.
So you're infiltrating the downspouts?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
In 2 areas, so this side of the house would go there, that side would go there.
And what are you putting it into? It's a tank? or
Caltech system?
Caltech, okay.
Yeah, so you're looking at four Caltex. So you have 8 total,
Yep.
with crushed stone around each of them.
Peter, then why is the perimeter drain off to the right-hand side?
Because it's a walkout and I have to get it, it has to be underground. It has to be a foot below the slab. So that's why the
So-
under drain has to go
Okay,
out.
so that's the perimeter drain that's gonna be separate. You're not
Correct, yeah, it's
putting
just
the water
daylight.
from the gutters into the perimeter drain.
Correct, no.
Okay.
The perimeter drain
Yeah,
is
'cause
just
that's
for
normal, right?
groundwater.
That's standard, that the gutters go into the drain, but you've separated them.
I've
And putting in a
separated
Caltech,
them.
because we haven't
Yeah, so
seen that
that's
before.
That's just
So that is to be
groundwater,
applauded, yeah.
groundwater for the basement. That's the only reason why that under drain is there. The recharge areas, the downspouts will be connected and it'll go into the Caltech chambers.
Thank you.
And the driveway slope, when is the driveway sloping one way or the other? If,
The driveway, basically we have a high point here. So this driveway will come, it'll basically come in and then go in the grass. It won't go out in the road. And then this back area here will just go back into the grass in the backyard.
outside of the.
Yep.
You're saying it's going to grade so it doesn't go out to the road?
It shouldn't go out to the road, maybe just the first 25 feet, because we have to go up.
So you're going to push it off to the side
We're
before
gonna
it
push it
gets
off to
there?
the side so it goes in the grass area here.
Okay.
Because this front area will be mounded, there'll be a swale along the front to get that water this
Around
way.
the septic system?
Yep.
Okay, thank you for taking our concerns and Mass DEP's concerns that you were able to move the driveway and tweak the septic system over. It's much easier to do that before you start excavating.
Yeah, that's true.
Doing it on a computer plan. Any further questions? Okay. Susan, can you see if anyone's got their hand raised?
I'm trying to log in right now, sorry.
You're not in, okay, well, let's bring up Teams.
Nobody's
Nope,
hands
Just give me a
up.
minute.
don't see any hands. All right, I'll now entertain a motion to accept the NOI for 75 Blackstone. This is 75, right?
75, yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the notice of intent for 75 Blackstone for a single-family house. Again, with our standard details on the well. And thank you for the Coltech on the downspouts, appreciate that.
Yeah,
No problem.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Peter, aye.
Susan, I.
Passes unanimously.
Okay.
Thank you. It
Thank
would be
you.
very helpful if you write up the paperwork if you need anything further on this.
Yeah, we will write up the order conditions for you.
Email it, and if you are drawing up a paper copy, you can drop it off in our annex office. But if you mail it to Concom, it'll get filed away, and we'll, if anything further needs to get done with it, we'll be able to print out and get signatures at our next meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone in the audience here who has business or in the Teams call besides the 23 Cape Road here? Okay, I guess not. All right. We will now open the public hearing for 23 Cape Road. Before they start their presentation, I will go through some correspondence that we have had with the applicant. As I was preparing the minutes, I made up a list of asked and answered that were done at our last meeting based on the questions from the commissioners and from the audience. There is a few corrections where, for example, how far is the property line from the nearest corner of the building? He said, about 300 feet. They came back with the exact amount. So when the minutes are approved later on, that issues and questions will be addressed. In addition, there was a correspondence about diesel particulate emissions. And so the question that was asked in addition to the one at the meeting is, will the site have refrigerated trailers loading and unloading? Will there be a parking area where refrigerated trailers may be parked for many hours and continuously run diesel or other engines to power the refrigeration? And the response from is, the development is being built on a speculative basis and we do not have a tenant involved at this time. They also wrote a letter addressing the other issues that were raised to the best of their ability. That is on the Mendon MA.gov website. There's a special folder that's been set up for 23 Cape Road for planning documents and Conservation Commission documents. And that has been placed in that folder, so they are available to the public. With that having said, we're now ready for your presentation. Is there anyone on Zoom who's going to be talking? Okay.
I will.
Okay, are you going to be able to share documents so that I don't have to? You have the,
I'm on my phone, Chairman Harmel.
Oh,
I think I have
okay.
two engineers there this evening that are going to be presenting on behalf of Blue Water. Brian Thalman from Depreet and Dan Wells from LEC should be in person.
yes, they are here. Are you able to see them sitting across the table from us?
I can, yes, I can, sorry.
Okay, great. In that case, I will see if I can bring up the documents that they are talking about.
Perfect, and then I'm just going to open it up and kick it over to them. So good evening, Chairman Hamel, distinguished members of the commission. This evening, we're back to present on 23 Cape Road. There was a number, as you alluded to, Chairman Hamel, there was a number of questions from the last meeting that were answered kind of on the fly. We have answered those for the record, I believe, in the letter that was sent to Concom this week.
Yes.
It's the second half of the letter has all of the exact answers. And I believe they're reflected in the minutes you and I traded emails on. So I appreciate your help on that. And then there was an additional 10 questions that were asked at the last meeting, plus the additional correspondence you referenced that we'll be presenting on tonight, that are the beginning of the letter that was submitted to Concom again earlier in the week. Along with that submission was a copy of the O&M Stormwater Maintenance Manual that was referenced in one of our responses. It's the same manual that was included in our planning board docs, and we were unsure if the commission had it, so we included it as part of our submission for this meeting. So that is in there as well. So with that said, I think I'm going to kick it over. It's going to be a combination of Brian and Dan, but I think Dan can kick it off, and we're just going to walk through the 10 questions, if that's okay with the commission, go answer by answer, and then kick it back to you, Chairman Hamel, to open it up for questions from the public, if that works for the commission.
Yep.
Perfect. Dan Wells.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to, you passed it when you were scanning through the actual SharePoint, I think. If you go back there, I can point to where it is.
Questions to, response to questions. Yep, there it is. Great. Now, if I can make this big enough. It ain't gonna let me. Oh,
While you're bringing that up, Chairman, the first question kind of is a Blue Water question. It was a question relating to the sound study.
Yep.
So I'll take that one before Dan jumps in. The sound study is still in progress. We presented a piece of the original sound study in our first planning board meeting. Subsequently, the planning board had the sound study peer reviewed by their engineer. We were asked to address a number of items which we are currently addressing. We were also asked to take additional ambient sound measures, which we had set our sensors about a week and a half ago and collected a week's worth of data, which is now getting kind of combed through and put back into the sound study, which will be resubmitted to the planning board for their review. And then this document that's on the screen says that we are going to present on the 220 meeting. We were informed by the planning board they're not meeting on 220, so we are not back on the Mendon planning board meeting until 3/6.
Yep.
And then from there, I'll let Dan chime in.
Mr. Chairman, would you like to go one by one, or are there any in particular you feel like deserve more attention?
Just say, give the highlights of them, and then we'll see if Susan or Peter or Bob have any follow-up questions.
Okay, the second question was, what in the plan has been peer reviewed by Graves Engineering? And so there's basically copied from their report. It specifically indicates the exact scope of what their review covered. And it was, I'm happy to read that or go through it, but essentially there's nothing specific to Wetlands Protection Act. Part of the question is there a need for additional peer review? So I guess our team feels that, you know, the stormwater has been thoroughly reviewed by Graves. In terms of compliance with Wetlands Protection Act, we feel like it's more or less straightforward compliance with riverfront performance standards, which we demonstrated that we have a less than 10% alteration within the riverfront. There were a few comments from Mass DEP, which we'll get to, but we addressed those in this document as well. So I guess from our perspective is we feel you have the information, related to the Wetlands Protection Act and covered pretty well and responded to in this document, and all the stormwater and civil engineering peer review has been covered through the planning board.
Okay, we may have people talking further about peer review later on after you finish this walkthrough of the letter.
The third one is regarding what is the maintenance plan for the entire site? What will happen after a major storm event and what periodic maintenance will be scheduled? So this one I would turn over to Brian. We did include a copy in our submittal.
It's appended to the back of the
Yes.
response to comments.
Pages like 7 through 30.
Yes. So there is a stormwater operation and maintenance plan which outlines responsibility as well as specific tasks that occur after each event. Typically, what would trigger an immediate review is any rainfall event in excess of 2.7 inches. That would be an immediate. Other than that, it would be periodic inspections. And then it outlines public
2.7
safety,
inches in one day or
24-hour period.
Okay.
That's the 100-year plan, right? That 2.7
No, that is typically a 2-year storm.
or 2 year?
Again, we want to make sure that, the vast majority of the events that we would see, we take a look at the system. I think a 100-year event is almost 8.5 inches of rainfall in a 24-hour period. So, we want to look at this much more frequently as it is going through its treatment system.
It's running its daily routine.
It's a far more frequent routine,
Mhm.
I guess is the way to characterize it. It also goes through maintenance activities that should be occurring on monthly, weekly types, semi-annually. There are checklists that are incorporated. We include kind of the manuals for the appurtenances to the stormwater management system that need to kind of periodically be looked at. And we also have included kind of a draft agreement for maintenance. I know that there were a lot of questions related to, public input on a private system. So we've included kind of a draft agreement that's used in other communities and other states that kind of memorializes, if you will, responsibility and what that implies as far as long-term maintenance of the system.
That maintenance plan more properly belongs under the planning board's jurisdiction, so I'd be working with them and the other members of the planning board to make sure that it incorporates any feedback we have about parts of the plan which would impact the resource areas.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So I take it it's the responsibility of the owner operator
Correct.
to perform them,
Yes.
and that the town would have the right to come in and inspect if something went wrong or after a big storm, or does the town have any rights to inspect, or they need to ask permission, or what right for inspection is there?
I think those are things that could be incorporated into the agreement so that I think roles and responsibilities should be defined and then memorialized within the agreement. That way there isn't any he said, she said.
Good. I'm all for that. So then the last point then would be, it's great that someone's going to do that work. And I'm not wanting the town to do it, but I'm wanting the town to be assured that the work was done. So whether there's an annual report or something, and then have the ability, if something looks fishy, to follow up on it. But that's,
Yep, I'll send an email to the planning board asking them, saying that we have discussed this maintenance plan. That may be a role that is delegated to the highway department, since they have some expertise cleaning out catch basins and looking at underground structures. Okay,
Okay.
next one.
Next one, number 4. Applicant agreed to review and expand the stormwater plan to include storms greater than 100-year magnitude.
So we did a follow-up analysis, which we looked at the 50-year storm in year 2070, which is what is the kind of benchmark, if you will, for future storms. We looked at the 100-year storm, but it closely modeled what was, I think somebody had suggested the 2 years, the 25-year storm, but it closely modeled what we had already run through our system. So we pushed it out to what is the standard within the state as far as future storms, and that event was almost a 10-year event. And as a result of that analysis, we're showing that none of the components in the system are overtopped.
Any questions?
Yeah, I guess I'm just getting a little confused. So is a 100-year storm 10 inches? Or what is the 100-year storm?
12 point something, I think you said.
So you're not modeling the 100-year storm, you modeled 10 inches.
Response says typically 10 inches.
Typically 10 inches.
Well, I'm getting a little, typically
Yeah,
10 and versus 12.
I'll look it
And then the question really was looking at more than 100-year,
Right.
which isn't looking at the 10, it's looking for a 200-year, which would imply it's more like almost twice that volume.
So right now,
Not twice.
right now, the 100-year storm event is 8.3 inches. The 2070 50-year event, which is what we look at with respect to long-term impact on the system, is 9.8 inches.
Okay, could you explain the 2070 thing? Is that something that has come out in the last 3 years? Because I attended a mass stormwater conference that they held here in this room a couple of years ago, where they were talking about how town governments need to start looking for more severe stormwater events, more severe drought events. So if the mass government has said, here is what we are now asking communities to look at, if that's the 2070 metric, then I think that would be sufficient. Or
So it's the RMAT 2070 storm analysis is what we incorporate. So the Resilient Mass Action Team standards and guidelines were reviewed to ensure proposed stormwater best management practice can successfully pass through future extreme storm events. The rainfall amount proposed to be analyzed for the site was 25-year storm event in 2070. However, this storm was approximately equivalent to the current 100-year storm event of 8.35 inches.
okay,
Therefore, the 50-year event in 2070 was chosen, which is 9.7 inches in a 24-hour period.
okay, and you've done your planning based on how many inches in a 24-hour period?
The current 100-year storm event is 8.35,
Right, but you said that you were now looking at the 2070, which is how many inches?
9.7.
Okay, so you've gone up a little.
Yeah.
Okay, I will follow up and see if I can look at
Mr.
what's
Chairman,
happened in the last
I
2
have
years.
a question. Didn't you originally say this proposal was for 2.7 inches of water? And
That's
this storm event is for 10?
Let me try and summarize.
That's the
The
previous.
2 point something is
So
after there's that much rain in a day, the site owner goes out and checks everything.
Yeah.
That's different from
Okay.
when they are designing the site and planning for drainage, that they handle a huge amount of water all at once.
Okay.
So the O&M agreement, what triggers an immediate inspection is a 2.7 inch rainfall event within 24-hour period. The commission had asked us to look at events in excess of what is typically standard. So with the current global warming kind of concern and increases in precipitation, there are rainfall events that are forecast out another 40 or 50 years.
Mhm.
So we look at what is that now? So if the design life of the system is 50 years, what could be an extreme rainfall event in that 50-year period, which is thus the 2070 event with 9.7 inches?
So you're designing the system for 9.7, but after 2.7, you inspect it.
Correct.
Okay.
We didn't design the system for 9.7. We modeled the system to make sure that it doesn't overtop.
Well, isn't one the same?
There's a little bit of difference.
Mr. I have a question, because over top, so you got a big tank. And I guess my question would be, what storm is going to fill up that tank? And you're saying a 10-inch storm is not going to fill up that tank.
Approximately, yes.
So what storm would fill it? Because does it have slow release, or it only releases once it gets to a certain point? Or it's a dry, it hasn't rained for 2 weeks. Is it a dry tank?
It's a dry tank,
So where's it draining? Out the bottom?
out the bottom.
And it has a small pipe at the bottom and a big pipe at the top, or?
It has a stone layer that sits beneath the chambers.
And that would be the infiltration.
That's the infiltration.
Is this on one of the 25 pieces of paper you have on the
Internet
plan
source.
there?
And so the rate of infiltration doesn't keep up with a 10-inch storm, right?
Correct.
But,
So that is what the storage capacity is in the chambers above.
right, and you're saying with a 10-inch, it's not going to overtop,
It doesn't reach the top of the chamber.
and the same amount of water is going out per minute, whether it's a full tank or a small tank.
Correct. I mean, there is some head that pushes it down that increases the infiltration.
Because I guess my more concern is flooding downstream. That's a detention pond is designed to keep the rate of flow. So,
So the wear in the outlet control structure governs the flow out of the system.
over and above what the infiltration is.
Correct.
So the question that I'm trying to figure out is what storm is going to overpower that system? And you're saying, well, it's not 100.
Nothing we've analyzed.
Nothing you've had.
Yeah, I mean, according to the USGS, they've had 2 500-year storms within the last decade, so they're just increasing.
So then the question is, what would a 500-year storm do to that system?
On the table right in front of you is the same thing. It's easier to find.
So I suppose it's some weird thing that, let's assume the tank fills up. Water's still going to go around and off the site, right? It's not going to flood up the hill.
Correct.
And so then we're just worried, at that rate, it's going to be flooding everywhere.
Yeah,
in
and
town,
the risk
right?
is that it would start eroding away the back driveway. And then they have major site problems.
Erode away
So it's in
everything.
their best interest to keep that from happening.
Yes,
So have you found the part of the plan that shows?
it's on sheet 21.
Okay,
Did you want to?
You answered my question.
okay, so yeah, I just want to see where on the site this underground. And in response to a
Center
question
parking
we
lot.
had last meeting, it's going to be covered up. It's not going to be something mosquitoes can eat.
Correct. That is the system, which is behind.
Runs almost the length of the whole parking lot. It's pretty big, right?
It's a majority of the truck court.
Yeah.
So you can go back to that, this one right here. So
Yep.
here's the building.
So the system is essentially in this area.
Right, so if that overflows, every place where the back bays where trucks are loading and unloading is going to start eroding away. The other thing that means is that if it overflows, it will go across the driveway and down towards the wetlands. That's the way that, that's the failure mode of this, that if this does overflow, that's where the water would end up going. Okay. We may have a more follow-up on 500-year stores happening twice in 10 years and get back to you with further questions about that.
Chairman, the other question would be is, that's a fairly large slope going down. Where's all the water that's going down that hill and from the rest of the site going to be captured?
Can you say something about how the runoff from the parking lot and the roof and the driveways ends up in the system?
So there are a series of catch basins that collect that runoff. Right now, it's unmitigated. We impart a drainage system that collects that. We are also making some enhancements to the existing detention pond that is in the eastern side of the project where it has no outlet control structure right now. So we're incorporating an outlet control structure. And then rather than the drainage system that currently exists to run through kind of the central portion of the property, we are now going to route that around, put it through a downstream defender, which will give some water quality treatment, and then discharge that into an open swale that routes around the building to the south and then along the western side back to the wetland complex.
What percentage of the water hitting the roof and the parking lot and the driveways do you expect to end up in the underground cistern? And how much will get diverted by the
100% goes to the underground
okay.
system.
So when the driveway and the parking lot are paved, it gets angled and shaped so that all of the water flows into the underground system?
Conveyance system that ultimately goes to the underground system.
Okay. The other question I would have is, if we have 5 inches on Monday and 5 inches on Wednesday and 5 inches on Saturday, at what point how quickly is the cistern emptying out on the bottom?
It typically empties within 20 hours.
Okay, so the entire capacity of a 10-year, if we get 10 inches in 24 hours, all of that will slowly drain away by the next rain event a day later.
Well, and I think the other thing to keep in mind is that the system is designed to essentially deal with water quality events, which is about 90% of the rainfall events that we do. These larger storms, we store that increase in volume, and then that is then routed through an orifice, which deals with the upper volume storm. So even though we're still infiltrating the water quality volume, we are managing the larger volume storms with the capacity within the storage area.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep.
I have a quick question. So actually a statement. There are hundreds of studies showing that the combustion of diesel fuel, which is primarily used in the big trucks that come into warehouses, do release PAHs and particulate matter. They usually end up in the wetlands, any sort of water body. Hundreds of studies. I just pulled down a bunch of them today. They also make artificial wetlands to help deal with some of these problems. So they do tend to absorb into those areas. The Stormwater Defender does not specify exactly what it's taking out, and it just says oils and garbage. It doesn't say anything about that, those two particular items. The river is already impaired. They're reevaluating it right now. I'd say in Mendon, there's probably at least 20-something outfalls in Mendon alone that are already entering the Millbrook. Is that the correct name? Sorry. And, we feel that the stormwater conveyance of not being, at least showing us that it's going to take out these and not impair the river anymore.
So would that be more wastewater management than stormwater?
It's stormwater and probably a little of both.
Okay. Because one of the concerns we have that I expect we'll get to later is where you're piling up the snow, because that's a whole concentrated amount of wastewater.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Could you just clarify what the PAHs, did you say? What were the contaminants?
Polyaromatic hydrocarbons in PA, and particulate matter 2.5 and 10.10.
And this is from the burning, the idling
combustion.
diesel trucks?
Yeah, it's a combustion.
federal law and state law and the Mendon bylaws have time limits on how long you can have a diesel idling, and then there are exceptions to that. And I'm sure people in the audience know more about that than I do, but that's something, since there are now studies showing that running diesel engines impacts wetlands, we want to be investigating that over the next week or two, the next couple
Yeah.
of meetings.
Would you be able to share at least a couple of those studies too with us?
Certainly, yep.
That would be
I
helpful.
also have worked with one of the people at Harvard who, as a TA, who has written a lot of these studies. So, yep.
Inside track.
Inside track, yeah. That was the only reason I was able to get those without having the paywall.
Do any of you guys know how much material was taken out there? How much the elevation has dropped?
We'll talk
you know?
about that. That's not relevant to the plan they're presenting. That's talking about the enforcement order that we'll be looking into, and that'll be happening after they finish this presentation.
Okay.
This is just talking about, given the existing site, what are they planning on doing?
Okay.
The next item is regarding snow storage. So our response indicates that those are depicted on the site plan sheets, sheet 6 to 10.
Carl, if we put the paper clips on the top of that, it'll be easier to flip it over.
There's not that many people on today.
There's one area here. Area here. Area here. Here. And here.
Okay, and are those the oval circles there, the catch basins where the water would go into a filtration system?
No, those are call-offs for curbing.
Oh, okay, so when there's a large pile of snow and salt and diesel crud and road crud sitting in a snow pile, it's now going to be in a concentrated area. So is there something that will be taking that particular runoff and making sure that it gets filtered?
So the way that the site is graded, everything discharges to a catch basin. The catch basins have sumps, and then that water then ultimately finds its way to the isolator row, which provides the water quality treatment within the infiltration system.
So the expectation is that the overall, there isn't going to be anything special needed for dealing with the snow pile. It's because the existing plan for when there's a normal rain event is going to funnel it all into the same places, and then they are going to be doing.
Yeah,
So
whether
that-
it's frozen or liquid, it
Yes.
still goes to the same place.
So that sounds like it's more of a maintenance task where if there's a 10-foot, 20-foot pile of snow, when it melts, you would want to do an inspection of where that particular thing went, because that filter in that part of the system may have a much higher load than normal. So that may need maintenance on a more frequent basis than
Correct.
someplace which is just getting rain and wastewater put into it.
You know, and I think if you were to go back and look at what equates an inch of rain to
Yep.
snowfall, that would kind of,
Right, but I'm not, the reason we're concerned about snow piles is because instead of, when rain, there are a lot of trucks going back and forth, so there's rubber, road crud, stuff like that all over the pavement. Rain will put that all over the site and it filters in normally. When you have a snow pile, you have in one place, not just stuff that gets scraped up from the pavement, but any salt and sand and other contaminants getting put in a big giant mound. And then that, when it melts, puts a whole lot of contaminants in one.
Concentrates
it. Concentrates them, thank you. The same thing will be happening in the diesel parking area that you have in the southeast part of the site. That if there are trucks that are there, there may be runoff from those trucks if they get rained on more heavily. So that would be another place to look at an additional maintenance, more frequent maintenance and testing.
The southeast corner is where the downstream defender is, though.
Okay, so that's right where you'd want it.
Yep.
All right, so ready for
Number 6, Susan Cahalan will follow up with the applicant about specific questions.
So we did a TSS and phosphate analysis.
Oh,
and,
right.
In both cases, we exceed what is required by Massachusetts.
Okay, that's good, yeah, because the one in the initial packet was from New Jersey, from
Yep.
2015.
So the Mass standard is 90% TSS. We come up with 97%. And then for phosphorus removal, the Mass standard is 60%. We remove 67%.
So it's 90%, it used to be 80% or something? TSS has gone up?
The removal rate.
What's the difference?
So the standard is, the Mass standard is you must remove at least 90.
Right.
Our analysis is 97%.
And I was just familiar with it, used to be 80, right? When did they change it?
85%.
Yeah, something like that.
So it changed. And phosphorus is a new one to us. How do you achieve the phosphorus? By taking out the coarse sediments, because that's the TSS. And in my opinion, it doesn't do a whole lot of phosphorus. So how do you get credit for phosphorus?
So phosphorus is bonds to the particle in the
Fine
infiltrate.
particles, yes.
So the more surface area that you have, the greater the uptake is.
Yeah, my concern is that they go on the fines, and TSS is mostly the coarse. And so you take out 85, 90% of the coarse settled, and you're still letting the 10% of the fines go right through, and that's where so I'm sure there's other places have this issue or how they come up with it, but it's a new standard for us because we haven't dealt with it, and so it's.
And again, I'll just reiterate that the Mass standard is 67 and we exceed that to 67% removal.
It's 60, Brian. 60. And we're 67.
Correct.
I was just trying to get educated, so it's the same, you get that phosphorus reduction by taking out 85% of the coarse solids.
Well, the other thing too is that the treatment system has a filter in it. That filter is maintained. So as the phosphorus bonds to the filter, it's maintained on what is prescribed in the ON plan. So as that filter is cleaned off, now it is rejuvenated to be able to uptake more.
So how do you clean off the filter besides backwashing it? Do you take it out and backwash it? I guess that's the question for the maintenance. You have a filter that someone's gonna take out and,
Yes,
okay?
It's a
That's in the
replaceable
detail,
filter.
that's the management plan.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian, it's a replaceable filter?
I would assume that it, like everything, it has probably a useful life where then it is replaced.
any questions before we go to the next one? Number 7.
The next section is the 3 Mass DEP comments. And the first one, the comment states that it appears that the proposed use is a LUHPPL and the applicant should demonstrate compliance with Stormwater Standard 5. Additional information should be submitted to Mass DEP and the Commission on the southwestern swale to the south, clarifying if the swale is proposed for conveyance or infiltration and how the swale meets the design standards for use such as soils depth to bedrock and depth to groundwater.
So the site is not classified as a LUPL, which is land use with higher pollutant loads. Typically, that is where you have on-site fueling. There will be none at this facility. And there'll be no storage.
Distinction, because who was it? The auto place. They had an LUHPPL. Maybe that's because they clean things there.
They have to store waste oil probably on site.
Do
Okay,
they have
so
a car wash?
they have a car wash. So I'm just wondering, is there the amount of trucks, or you're saying per land use references, industrial warehouse? And so what else kicks it? So you're saying if there was washing, it would kick it? Or
There's no washing of.
So you're saying there's nothing that would kick it?
Correct.
Okay.
So the conveyance system that we're proposing in the southeast corner is a marked improvement over what exists now.
Oh, yeah.
There is a cut and fill situation that goes on, but we've balanced it such that none of the impacts of groundwater or the estimated seasonal high water table or ledge are impacted.
Mr. Chair, I'd just make a general comment. I see the title is redevelopment. And I know there's a distinction as to what you got to meet. I do not see this as a redevelopment of a site. This is a site that had some roads put in that then got taken out. So on what grounds is it a redevelopment?
Well, there is I'll call it a checklist that you go through and it specifically relates to commercial industrial properties. That triggers a threshold and it's based on impervious. So that when you exceed a certain percentage above what that is, it is classified by the Commonwealth as a redevelopment project.
So if you build in more pavement, you're a redevelopment, as opposed to if you only did a little bit of paving, you wouldn't be a redevelopment? I don't get the logic of that.
So redevelopment, when you get above a certain point, the standard goes up to what you have to treat.
Okay, I was interpreting that it was less, but I guess I'll get educated.
The question that I wanted to follow up on this is the correspondence that I mentioned earlier about whether there will be refrigerated trailers, and the response is you're building it on a speculative basis and you don't have a tenant involved at this time. What assurance does the town have that the tenant won't decide they want to do truck washing and the tenant won't want to do fueling and refueling? What is the mechanism by which we can be sure that the tenant won't do that?
I would say that's part of the zoning review when the application comes in, because your zoning ordinance would dictate whether certain activities are permitted by right or by special use permit. I would consider, with Mendon being very concerned about environmental impacts, that their zoning ordinance is pretty tight with respect to uses that are permitted by right and those that require some oversight.
So tell me if this timeline I'm about to lay out is correct. Your company would come in and build the warehouse and all of the underground structures, and we would sign off on that. When a tenant wants to come and start using the warehouse, they would then go before the zoning board to say, here's what we want to put in the warehouse, here's the trucks we want to have doing it, and the zoning board would conduct a review. Is that?
Chairman, that's not exactly correct. So
Okay, then
maybe I can
please.
answer the question a little better. So yes, the site is being built, or the project is being built on a speculative basis. There is no tenant is going to have a refueling setup here. We're not designed for that. We don't meet the standards, specifically as we're talking about this specific item, the LUHPPL. We don't meet any of the standards and haven't designed for that. So no tenant that's going to approach us that would want that, we wouldn't be able to accommodate that request. So that's one. And then two, the the tenant, there is no use restriction in Mendon in terms of the tenant having to be approved by the planning board, and we've had this discussion with the planning board and with Jack Hunter. There's no they don't have to come back to the board. They have to fall in line with certain things that we proposed in our development, i.e. the traffic counts in the ITE manual have to be in line with what the tenant is going to do. So it's similar in the sense that the tenant can only use this facility for what it was currently built for. And to answer the question, it's not currently built to be a any type of refueling or wash down facility for trucks.
Okay, so the better way of putting it is, if 5, 10, 15 years down the road, a tenant wants to start refueling, they would have to engage another company to draw up a site plan and go through the planning board and Concom to get that done.
Yeah, they would have to go through the proper channels and permitting to accommodate such a use on the site. Right now, the use that's being proposed and the ITE code that's being proposed is for strict warehousing, and that's really it.
Okay, and questions about noise and idling are things that the planning board will be working out in their jurisdiction.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about noise and idling. As we mentioned earlier in the meeting, we have a sound study currently being reviewed for the second time, and then as it relates to idling, as many of you know on the commission, OSHA dictates the idling standards for the trucks, so the tenant obviously has to be in line with those. We were also asked by the planning board to do a study as it relates to air pollution and the trucks, and that was conducted. There was I wouldn't say a peer review, but there was a study conducted on behalf of the planning board reviewing our documents as it relates to pollution from the tractor trailers.
Okay, and Susan will be looking into diesel particulate matter as it specifically applies to impact on the wetlands, and we may have further observations and issues in that area.
Yeah, and if there's something that the commission needs us to study or look at as it relates to that, once you dig in, just feel free to send it my way and we'll get you back a response.
Yeah, could you send us a Dropbox to put all these things in or something? Or a link?
I'm sorry, what items?
Rather than
All the
sending everything
reports.
as attachments, can you send email to Concom about how you want us to deliver documents to you?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Just so, yeah, keep them in one place.
Yeah, and the planning board, I believe, has a public Dropbox or link where all of the documents we presented to them that we've referenced are there for public viewing.
Yep, and I put some in the Concom folder in that area as well.
Mr. Chair, just one kind of following up on DEP's comment about the swale, and you're saying it's for conveyance only and not for treatment. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you're not getting any credit for phosphorus credit for running through a grass swale. You're getting all your treatment from the smart flow or whatever you call it, downstream defender.
Yes.
So you're not getting any credit because they would then want you to do the soil analysis, depth to bedrock and depth to groundwater.
Correct.
But you're saying you're not.
All we're using that for is conveyance. And again, and that is taking runoff that already comes from the east and directs it through the middle of the site. We're intercepting that and then bringing it around. In addition to running it through a downstream defender, we're significantly increasing the travel time. So now we're taking that runoff and moving it away from the peak hour to give the wetland an opportunity to recover.
Okay, and then you say there's a riprap outfall to dissipate outflow velocity. Doesn't this swale go into your underground?
No.
So this is water that does not get treated in your underground. This only gets treated by your defender.
Correct.
And hopefully it's not catching a whole lot of, because I'm not sure where you're catching that water which gets on the road. My concern is that whole slope coming down off of the road. What's to stop it just from coming down and into that swale?
So there's kind of a peak in Witten. Everything west of the peak enters into our system. This is the stuff that's prior to the peak, that's routed to the existing detention pond that we then capture where it has no mitigation or outlet control structure now, we route it through an outlet control structure where right now it just cascades over the embankment. The embankment has eroded away. The outlet control structure now lets it perform as a detention pond. So we get at least some primary treatment there. Now we're secondary treatment through the downstream defender. And then once it's out of the downstream defender, it's conveyed to the south and then back to the well.
So you are going to be using it, the detention pond? That detention pond that's there, you're going to keep and use?
It's not ours to
It's your site to do with as you want, or whatever's required, so. There's a detention pond there, but I never saw it really working, and was it?
So we capture runoff here.
Yeah.
That's routed to the downstream defender.
So show me where the detention pond is.
Right here.
Is that on your property?
That's not on our property.
Oh, the detention pond's not on your property. Wow.
It serves
How'd that
the
happen?
building. It serves the metal panel building above us, like off of Witten.
Yeah, and I imagine there's water coming off of that, and there's a gas station up there, so where does all the water? It comes downhill.
Yeah, and God forbid they have a release. Yeah, anyway, I have a quick question. Why would you design this, one of the largest projects that would be here, to have all of these, the loading docks facing the wetlands and not like a different direction?
It's really was designed. I mean, that's a very deep question. There's many reasons why it was laid out that way. I think one of the biggest ones is the topography of the site lends itself to using the truck court, which is a -4 elevation compared to the rest of the building.
So that when you're unloading a truck, you don't have to dig down as deep to back them into the building. Is that, so that sort of makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I think what we would want to do is, we definitely need to wait until the sound study is done, because that will determine, after that, they will say what their sound barrier, they will get that discussion working out with the planning board, and then we can evaluate that sound barrier and say, how good is it going to be at capturing particulate matter, the diesel stuff? And then maybe we may want to suggest modifications to that specific to the to the wetlands interest, as opposed to what the planning board would be looking at for noise impact. Because that is the structure that's basically the last defense of the wetlands before they get to the trucks and the warehouse and the people in the cars in the parking lot. All right, any other questions about this, about
I
the
just have one.
DEP one? Yeah.
From my understanding, you're not supposed to dump your water on somebody else's property. So if you're using somebody else's retention pond, isn't that dumping your water onto their property?
No.
No, unfortunately, it's worse, because it seems like that detention pond was designed to handle the water from Whiten Road coming down, right?
Yes.
And all the upland development. And so now someone has taken off that detention pond, right? That detention pond no longer works. There's no pipe coming off of there. It's not doing its job. So that means all that work that was done to design for upstream land, when it was all owned in one, they designed it and built it, and the bottom got scraped off. So what happens with all the, I don't know, I guess it went by surface. There weren't pipes. There were no catch basins in the road. Or you tell me what's there. That's
Catch basins where?
I'm going to say that, again, is outside the scope of their project, and that's part of our follow-on
and
conversation.
we'll have a discussion on that later, yes.
So we can't ask them to remediate a problem on somebody else's property.
Though what's being proposed is an upgrade to what's currently happening. We realized that there was a problem there and have designed to, I don't want to say fix, but to better utilize that structure to help mitigate the stormwater runoff.
Thank you.
So in your analysis of the flow, you took in the whole catchment area,
Yes.
not just your property?
Correct.
Yeah, they did say last meeting that they're tracking the water flowing in from the north onto their side. So any other questions on the Mass DEP comments? Was that all?
That was the first of three. Yeah,
of
first
three,
of three,
okay.
yep.
On to number two.
Okay. This next one is, so an alternative analysis. And so Depreet has created a plan that shows what it would look like if all the work was taken out of the riverfront. And do you want to put that one up?
So you're about to present something that Mass DEP created and are suggesting?
Well, no, they created.
Yeah, they just wanted us to analyze alternatives that would, and so the standard is could you have no riverfront impact?
Okay.
And so what this plan will demonstrate, Brian can get into the details, but there's two, as you recall from our first presentation, there's two small areas of riverfront alteration that are proposed.
One here and one here.
And both of those are within existing disturbed land. The lower of the two, you recall, would require, there's a pipe that goes right out into a channel and just basically dumps that water straight into the stream channel.
Head wall that's here.
Mhm.
So we've brought that back and then added roughly 100 feet of riprap channel to then dissipate those velocities, slow that water down as it comes out, which is a far better solution than what exists now.
Okay, I'm going to ask a naive comment. The expectation is that runoff from the roof, from the parking lot and the roads are going to go into your underground system. So, and then the underground cistern is then going to go down into the ground. So what water would be flowing into this thing during a rain event?
So again, our job as engineers is to bring post-development conditions to at or below existing conditions.
Okay.
So we'll go back to the discussion we had earlier where the majority of the infiltration takes place is the result of water quality. Bigger storm events, we need to store that peak flow and then meter it out at a rate. So this outlet control structure is functioning as the gatekeeper, if you will, to mitigate those increases in runoff. We're storing it, but then letting it out at a much slower rate than what it would leave the site.
So the cistern, in addition to draining under the surface, is also draining a fixed amount into the little pipe going out to the wetlands.
In the larger storm events.
Right, and that is, and the fact that there's riprap in there keeps it from being a raging torrent that's going to put silt
Correct.
in it.
There shouldn't be a whole lot of velocity on that though, right? Because what's the height difference from the, so why do you need such great outfall protection? Usually it's a 10-foot pad is sufficient, right? 20 foot. And here am I saying more is better, but I shouldn't think, you tell me, it shouldn't be rushing out of there. You'll have a full pipe when it's emptying, right?
Mhm.
But then what size pipe is it? It's more the slope, right? Because if you have a flat pipe and it's a 2-footer, it's still not going to cause as much damage as a 10-inch pipe with a steep slope. And then, so what goes into that pipe now? Is there a pipe?
There's a pipe.
And where does it connect catch basins?
Yeah, there's catch basins, as you drive straight down,
So there are
there's
catch
catch basins
basins in
and
that
it
area?
goes right into there, into the pipe and straight into the stream.
So
And
it did
so,
go to the detention pond.
mm,
Catch basins go right to this
Pond
pipe.
is only there
Yes.
for the road farther up and for the property that is to the east.
So it is a 36-inch pipe that comes out.
That's a big pipe.
So one of the, if we were to eliminate that riverfront impact, we could have zero riverfront impact there, but then you would lose all that above ground riprap and we would have to tie into the existing pipe. So the last 100 or so feet of that existing pipe would remain in place. And then there would have to be some kind of a catch basin just outside the riverfront boundary. So our position is it's much better for the resource area to alter the riverfront just because it's purely in these cases where water does come out of the system, it's going to be slowed down versus going through this existing pipe with no velocity control.
Wouldn't it be better to put in a retention pond with a raised drainage structure so that when the retention pond fills up to a certain height, it goes into the drainage structure and then flows out that way? So that way they capture more water at the surface level and don't put as much out into that stream?
Whether it's above ground or below ground, it's still doing the same thing.
You'd be able to capture more water, wouldn't you?
Why would it be able?
Yeah, I would say no. We specifically looked at above ground detention and the size of the pond to make an equal equivalent to what you see on the current design. The pond would have to be tremendous in size where we couldn't fit it in our design. So it was more feasible to put the underground, and we think these two impacts in both these areas are upgrading them. I mean, in our opinion, we're happy to remove what Dan just referenced, but I think it's the opinion of the professionals in the room that the design is better the way we're designing it, but we're happy to listen to the commission. If you want to forego the disturbance for what's in place, we could alter our plan to accommodate that or look at doing that.
Do you know what size pipe is in there right now?
24 inches, I think.
So you're going to gain another 12 inches in diameter by going to a 36. It's a lot of water.
We're also slowing down the velocity because a larger pipe we can put at a smaller slope.
Quick comment. So you really wouldn't have to worry about a lot of velocity if the pavement wasn't impervious, basically, and you're altering the hydrogeology of that particular spot.
So are you saying?
Yeah, I'm not sure I get the.
So it was more of a comment, like
They might be able to do pervious pavement for the parking lot, but
Yeah.
the road surface that the tractor
Right.
trailers are going on, I don't think so.
And
and that might just make it worse for any releases, but there's discussion about velocity being slowed down, but if right now it's being infiltrated into the ground, and now when you're going to pave that much area, you're altering the hydrogeography of the whole area. Oops, I'm sorry, I hit something here.
if the runoff
So
ends up in the same spot, how's the hydrogeology altered?
because it's not going directly into the ground to be filled to spread out in how it goes. I'm not wording that right, but
It's being concentrated in one area rather
Yeah,
than spread out along
exactly.
a big area.
It would have been infiltrated upstream if there wasn't pavement on it.
yeah, you have to excuse me, I'm just having trouble articulating this tonight, but but my training is that field, so.
Okay.
So I mean, with all this discussion about, you're making it better, but
What I'll request is if you come up with further thoughts and you can put them in writing as
Yes.
to impervious versus pervious, that you contact them and copy Concom and then they can add it to the list for the next go around.
Could all correspondence go through Concom rather than it?
Well, Concom is a mailing reflector.
Mm.
We do not have an email.
Or
Email's going to come from me, it's going to come from Susan. We always CC Concom because that way it goes into the Concom.
or at least from a single point of contact and then to a single point of contact.
It should come to. Sorry, guys. It should come to Blue Water, and then Blue Water should distribute to their consultants, kind of like the chairman and I went back and forth over the last 2 weeks.
Okay, yeah. So the email that you are sending to Concom should go to concom@mennonma.gov. And if you can follow up with me with an email saying all correspondence and questions should go to this person and not CC everybody else I did last time, then we will do that as well. And that way you can do your own internal document.
Sheet up again. The riverfront alternative. Okay, if you're okay, there's also the second part of this analysis I just wanted to point out. So the northerly of those two riverfront impact areas, so that the alternative plan also shows a method for eliminating that impact, and that would involve a retaining wall.
So right now, there really is a denuded site, for lack of a better term. There's no real understory, there's no real vegetation. So by us using that stream bank area, we are now able to kind of revegetate and reestablish what should be existing now.
Are there no trees there?
There are no trees on the site.
It's
Bald.
someone scraped it up
It's
and
just
you have
grasses.
seeds coming in and it's scraggly.
There is some canopy to the south that kind of cascades over the stone wall, but all the trees on the site have been removed.
And that
Yeah, and
happened,
it's
that
the-
happened many years ago.
Yeah, and it was old growth forest too. It's unfortunate.
So the project, by building, to keep it out of the riverfront in that area, there would have to be a 10 to 15 foot retaining wall in the rear of the truck court. So I believe, so what would happen now in the current design, there's going to be a slope that's going to be, seeded with, grass. It's going to be pervious, and there's going to be more of that kind of pervious surface in this current design versus pulling back with this retaining wall. Is that?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to recommend we table further discussion on this until the sound study is done and you present to the planning board and to us where the wall would be. And at that point, we can see whether we think the wall is an adverse impact for the extent that it's going into the northern resource area. Does that make sense?
Sorry, Chairman, I think it's backwards. We don't have a wall currently designed there. The alternative analysis that we were asked to conduct would entail putting a wall in versus grading into the slope that we wanted to disturb.
A different wall, not a sound wall, totally different.
Okay, so I'd like to see what the sound wall is going to be on the site, and then we can think about whether we want anything else in that northwest part of the parcel.
Okay. The sound wall is currently depicted on the plans.
Right. Yep.
Question, if you put the retaining wall in, does it change the height of the sound wall?
Quick response, knee jerk, no, but I would need a second to look at it with my team.
Yeah, and that's why I look at this as something that we can discuss after they finish the design of the sound study.
Right.
Figure out what they're doing in that part.
My question is they're talking about a 15-foot high retaining wall and a 12-foot high sound wall.
And, well, yeah, and this is where I'd want to see the two of them together on the same plan once they figure that out.
But they wouldn't sit on themselves, so there would be two walls and 10 feet apart, one 12 foot, and then you raise up behind it, and then there would be a sound wall above that, but yeah.
That's currently what's anticipated. I'm sorry, I don't know who said that, but that is the current way we have it designed. But we could certainly come back to the commission with the completed sound study and then talk about all the walls that are in the back of the truck court.
Okay. Any further comments on DEP note number 2? On to 3.
Third one was just procedural with the filing fee, and they suggested that there may be an additional fee for the nature of the point source discharges, but I quoted the regulation from regarding filing fees, and it It just indicates that any activities associated with the construction of said building, including site preparation, retention, detention basins, septic, parking, utilities, et cetera, shall not be subject to additional fees if all said activities are reviewed under a single notice of intent, which is the case. So I believe that explains why the filing fees were selected.
Questions about that third DEP note? Okay, on to next question.
I believe, Chairman, that's all the responses. The second piece, the second set of documents, or the second part of this document, is the minute responses that you already have.
Oh, okay, great.
Wait, there's a couple more, Josh, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought they were
Yeah.
in order. I apologize.
Yeah, this one right here.
Number 8, at the last hearing, one of the audience members was questioning about a 80,000 square foot number. And so that number came directly from the ENF and the MIPA certificate. It was when you fill out the ENF form, one of the questions is how much buffer zone alteration is there? And 80,000 square feet was the response. So Depreet just went and rechecked and came up with an exact number, which is 78,008 square feet. So that's I think there was a confusion as to the amount of riverfront alteration, which is less than, which is 7,678 versus this 80. So this 78,000 square foot number is buffer zone only. Concom would like to see technical details on construction of the retaining wall for the building.
We just touched on that, I think. So as soon as we have the sound study, we could come back to the commission with what the walls look like. I probably won't have construction documents at this time. I mean, those won't get produced until we are fully approved at the Concom and planning board level, and those will be submitted to building department for construction details. But we could certainly give you a feel of what the wall looks like and size and things of that nature.
Damon asked that, and he's not at tonight's meeting.
Will you have a conceptual plan for what the wall will look like?
In terms of like the finish on it?
Whether it's a wood wall, concrete wall, steel
Yes.
wall?
Yeah, absolutely.
And sorry, if you're ready, the final one is just what we talked about earlier. This was emailed into the commission regarding refrigerated trailers. So we don't have Josh.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, we're on a speculative basis, but my gut from doing this long enough says this is not going to be a tenant that uses refrigerated trailers because the building's not set up for refrigerated storage. So it's highly unlikely. I don't want to go on record and say impossible, but I'll say 99% that there are no refrigeration components to this project.
And the reason is because if a warehouse is going to do refrigeration, you have to have different electrical and other components when you're building it.
100%. There'd be a number of different features we'd be planning for on a spec basis if we were trying to attract some type of cooler tenant, which we're not. So yeah, we don't have the electrical, we don't have the HVAC for it here. There's a number of things that are missing that would drive this site to that use. So that's why I said I'm going to go with 99% that doesn't happen here.
Okay. Any other general questions from the board? Okay. The committee did get an email on February 9th. You have that in front of you. We had a concerned citizen asking a number of specific points. Since we haven't had a chance to review the document, we will be looking at it ourselves, and we may decide to follow up with you at a future meeting. The letter is available, and I'll forward that to you if you want to think about questions. I'm not saying we're asking you to answer all of the questions that the citizen is asking. I'm saying that we're going to review it, and we may want to follow up with you on some of those points that he has raised.
Absolutely, Chairman. We received it from you today as well. I had a moment to read it. A lot of it, I think, is actually covered in the meeting minutes from last meeting, and then plus tonight's submission. But we are happy if there is a number of items that are missing or you need us to look at. Just let us know which ones, and we could produce a similar response letter for the commission.
And spend another hour next meeting going over them. Okay.
I wish that wasn't the case, but I'm offering up. I'm happy to respond to the resident.
Oh, definitely. All right. So I'm now going to switch over to this one. And if we're all done asking questions, it's time for the audience participation section. So if there are people interested in asking questions based on tonight's presentation, please identify your name and your street address, and if you have a question. If there's anyone on Teams, please do the raise hand thing, and we'll see that as well. So any questions from the audience tonight? Yes.
Bruce Howe, 5 Joseph Road. Just a short while ago, you mentioned that there were trees had been removed from the site many years ago. I unfortunately don't recall if I sent you aerial photos.
Right.
But if you look at the 2015 aerial photo versus the 2021 aerial photo, you will see that the site was very heavily vegetated, and in 2021 it is not vegetated. And second comment refers to the 80,000 square feet. At the last meeting, I wasn't confusing the 80,000 square feet that was referenced in the ENF with the total square footage of the riverfront area. The 80,000 square feet I was referring to had to do with the comment, I think, from Mass DEP regarding the replication plan that they asked for.
Okay, so to go back to the vegetation one, yes, I have, here's the 2021 saying
Yep.
there's nothing there, and that's when we first notice a problem with silt running into the wetlands. And then 2015, it's vegetated. So
Right.
there's vegetation here and here, and there are other parts that were not.
Yeah, and there's
So-
some parts that are bare, but
Yeah.
it's not devoid of vegetation.
Right, so somewhere between 2015 and the 2021 photos, that's when they went in and removed the vegetation. And since it was interior like that, nobody noticed until we had a complaint of silt flowing into the wetlands, into the street. Okay, so on your second point about the discrepancy, do you have a question or any point that you need addressing?
No, all I was trying to do was
Okay.
clarify that that it has to do with the comment that DEP made requesting or looking for a replication plan that was to have been included in the NOI.
Okay,
A replication for what? Because you're not disturbing wetlands, right? Or what are they looking for restoration for? Maybe you can answer.
Mr. Chair, I think he's referring to the MIPA. This is all, again, MIPA. This has nothing to do with the Mass DEP comments for the NOI say nothing about restoration. So I think there's
Different state agency.
Mass DEP.
Okay.
The point is that they asked for it. They asked for it to be included in the NOI. And so my question is, should it be there or should it not be there?
Okay,
And that's in the letter. That's a question that's raised in the letter. that
Okay.
You guys haven't had a chance to review, so.
Okay.
If you want to hold off, we'll hold off.
do you want to follow up on the MIPA recommendations? I think it seems reasonable to do that. It's another state agency asking questions, so do you?
Yeah, I'd just like to know replication for what? What are they disturbing that needs replication?
Yeah,
Usually that's when you
and
whack wetlands.
I think this may tie into our conversation after this hearing closes.
As
where
to
we talk about-
previous problems, yes, okay.
Because there may be a necessity for us to do some significant work on remediating problems that were caused in 2021 or earlier. And that would feed into this particular project. Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Anyone go back and check Teams? I don't see any hands. All right. At that point, I'll entertain a motion to continue to our next hearing in 2 weeks.
I'll move that we continue this hearing until our next meeting in February, 2 weeks from today.
Yep,
25th?
25, yeah. Is there a second?
Oh, 23rd.
23rd, okay, it's too late for me to do math. All right, is there a second?
I'll
Bob
second.
seconds it. Susan seconds.
Okay, great. And discussion is that we will have correspondence via email if there are other significant points that we want to discuss based on applicants or any further research that Susan or other people are doing. Okay, so any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Bob, aye?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you once again.
Thank you
Okay.
for your time, everybody.
Thank you, Chairman and Commission. Appreciate your time tonight.
Okay,
Carl, do you want an update on,
I'm good. That's going to be handled under
you
correspondence.
might
So,
want to hang around for that.
well, we're now going to, at another part of the meeting, we have correspondence asking for us to give information on any possible enforcement order that may have been done based on the minutes from 2021. So you can go sit in the audience for this, but,
Is it possible just to take that on the turn a little bit, just to?
well, that's what we're going to talk about right now. That's the correspondence part. So yes, I'm now switching gears. Your presentation and the public hearing part is over. Now we're talking about previous business at the site. We do have correspondence from Karen Friedman of Lurie Friedman asking for information on the 2021 enforcement order for 23 Cape Road. I asked Peter to look into what we ended up putting in the minutes and whether we did any follow-up action. So go ahead.
Right, I haven't reviewed all the minutes, but from my memory, we got it was 2 years ago, we got email from a neighbor across the way saying there was major silt.
Silt runoff in the street.
I went out and looked at it, and yes, indeed there was. Came back, some members thought it might have been from the solar panel but then we went out again and it was clear it wasn't coming from
Yeah,
that.
the solar panel people put up a drone and showed aerial photographs saying no runoff from their property, but some suspicious brown stuff in the parcel north of them of the 23 Cape Road that looks the same color as the silt in the river. And that was the first that we knew that someone had gone in and clear cut them. And it totally ripped off all of the vegetation.
So we had a hard time figuring out who owned it and how to get in touch with them and get them to come to a meeting.
I have the meeting minutes.
Okay, I'm just trying to kind of off
So
the cuff.
maybe you can work with him.
So, Damon Tinio finally got in touch with him. He was going away to a trip in Europe, but he was very helpful, saying that, yes, he understood he had an issue. He had his landscape, his guys put in erosion control to stop it from getting worse. And that was about 2 years ago. And Damon and I kind of made the decision at that point, no, we didn't want them going in, cleaning out the silt by hand because thinking that might cause more problem than not. But we never took it to the next stage. I think we talked about it, might have even asked for to send a letter. I don't think we ever did.
No, we wouldn't have had a clerk at that point.
Well, no, this might have even been when we had a clerk, but would never had such an event that we didn't know how to do it. So now I talked with DEP this morning.
Yep.
That the way we do it is that on a site visit, you saw silt in the wetland?
Yes.
So
I wasn't there.
having seen the silt in the wetland,
That's where.
that should inspire us to
Sorry.
write a letter of notice of violation to the current owner,
I'll take that back. I was.
so that giving that person, and we have to figure out how to do this, that they then hire a professional to come up with a plan how to restore the wetlands.
Okay. This is the picture that I believe you sent it, from a document showing very clear. You can see the discoloration on the north, on the topmost part of the stream, that kind of brown stuff that's not this area right here, that coloration, it matches the soil in 23 Cape Road as it is now.
Right, so then the question is, has some of that silt gotten off the property and onto the neighbors? And then that's a different issue, because then the neighbors have the right to either sue or make it, but I like to think we can deal with this all at once, hopefully, and that come up with a restoration plan that's suitable to everyone, and that is totally apart from this proposal, and that it goes with the land. And those who are going to buy this, they'll buy whatever plan we come up with as a restoration. And so much like what we're doing on Millville Road, we can either do it hardball and we hire the person, but I think technically we should offer it to the owner to hire their person. And if we don't like the restoration plan, we can then get a third party to do that. But we need to write a letter stating a notice of violation, and there is some significant fines
Okay.
for each day that sediment sits. And it probably only starts from when the notice of violation went out, but I don't know.
Okay, can I get you to volunteer to write that letter?
Yes,
Good. Okay, let the minutes show that Peter's going to do that for us. All right. My question on this is, when I went on the site visit, I noticed on the road heading down, there's riprap every 30 feet or so going a little bit into the road. Is that one of the things that was done?
I have no idea. That's usually a good thing to try to divert the water
Yes.
coming down the street off, but it's
Oh.
kind of crude.
Yeah,
I believe that.
I
was-
parked in front of one of those and I ran over it.
Crude, but somewhat effective.
think
Luckily,
that
I
was
didn't get a
when
flat.
they
I would have
were
been
there
really mad.
And saw that the catch basins were being overpowered, so we had them put riprap
Okay.
around there and check dams going down to slow the water down.
okay. So that was a quick emergency fix, but it's
presumption.
not a long-term plan to deal with any additional, because after that work was done in 2021, we have this photo.
It's still coming off. That's fresh. That
Yeah,
looks pretty fresh.
so can you say when the photo was taken?
I think it was December 23rd, 2022.
Okay, so it was within the last 3 months then. Okay. All right.
And by the looks of that photo, I mean, I don't know what year of storm that was, but that river is significantly bigger than when we did our site visit.
We had a good rainstorm, right? Right before Christmas, and it
That's
was
right.
iced and.
And
Yeah.
during the site walk, as I said, if you have another high water where it's going way up, get a pole in the ground to measure it and take a picture of it, and you'll be able to say, during a storm event, before any work gets done on the site, either for remediating or for the new warehouse project, you'll have a before picture, and then that will be a baseline for ensuring that you don't have anything higher after the project comes in. Is there anyone else who can talk about the correspondence from Karen Friedman of Lurie Friedman? Okay. Let's see, I believe that concludes the discussions we're going to have tonight about 23 Cape Road. Anyone else want to bring up 23 Cape Road issues? All right. And the action item, the agenda item for this is that Peter will be following up with a letter and getting it sent to the current applicant. We would ask them to come before us and have a discussion with us at a future meeting. That's not going to be an open hearing, but it would be one where we have a conversation with them and work out what the next step would be, whether we would go for and Peter will come and research and tell us what happens as a result of that
Whether they
conversation.
handle it or whether we have to do a consent decree. Yep,
Yep.
that'll be the decision.
Sorry, Chairman. Chairman, that letter's being written to the current owner, correct? Not the Blue Water.
Right.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
That's why I'm being very careful to separate out when people on the committee were starting to ask about the existing conditions. I said, no, that's not part of your project.
Understood. I appreciate that.
The impact that there might be on your project is as a result of a consent order or an enforcement order, the existing property owner may have to do remediation efforts, and then your plan may need to be altered to reflect changes that they had to do to the soil, and then you want to come in and modify the site further.
And specifically, it kind of obviates your point that it's a messed up buffer, because arguably in the restoration plan, that buffer should be brought up and restored, but to be seen.
And if that happens, maybe you won't need to have the giant riprap thing going with going up to a 36-inch pipe. You may need to, that may no longer need to be something that you have to put in if the remediation plan takes care of that.
Yep, we're happy to incorporate whatever comes from that plan into our plan. Once the current owner takes care of it and the commission approves it, then we could adjust our plans accordingly if needed.
And that's why I wanted to ask for you to stick around for this part. Okay, any other questions or comments from us? Okay, we have a question.
Sorry, just a comment. I would also ask you to take into consideration the paved lot, which sits just north of the isolated wetland, where they just blew away where the current owner just blew away the whole bank. LEC properly identified the buffer there, but again, if you look in the aerial photo, you'll see that on the current owner's property, just within the 100-foot buffer, he just blew away an entire bank and created that impervious paved area.
And that happened relatively recently?
Well, again, if you look in the photos, it's not there in 2015.
Well, I was wondering if it happened more recently, but that will be included.
It
Yes.
happened somewhere between 2015 and 2021.
All that work did, yeah.
You could go back and, again, I'm not sure if the next year that the Mass Mapper photos are there. I think it might be 2018, 2019, 2021, something like that. But I think it was relatively recent.
All right.
Thank you for your good work.
Peter, what I would say is, in addition to, we definitely want to write a letter to the current owner of 23 Cape Road. If you can do some preliminary investigation to the upstream parcel and say, have they done work for which they should have come to us with an NOI? And if that is the case, we ask the owner of that parcel, where they are definitely doing refueling and they have the catch basin right now. We may want to have them come and talk with us if we're unhappy with the flow for that. And why are we noticing it after these years? Because they are now going to potentially be impacting the downstream much more because of their catch basin would end up overflowing and feeding into 23 Cape Road's waste and stormwater system. All right. So that concludes 23 Cape Road. Let's see. Talked about that. Next thing for 2 Thayer Road. This is also correspondence. The G11 system valve regulator work done near Two-Thayer Road has been completed. We went out there and did a sidewalk and an NOI and an OOC. They are now looking for a certificate of compliance. Because it is a secure area, safety issue, because, natural gas pipelines, if we want to do a site visit, that needs to be scheduled well in advance. Both Susan and I are interested in attending. Are either of you interested in going out there?
I would if it fits my schedule, but schedule it ahead, and it's
Okay.
mostly just see if the grass is taken, right, or it's,
Yes, the order of conditions is on, the COC sign off lists what the work was done, and they completed the earthwork last spring, and as of November, they said that they think that the vegetation is now grown in and they're ready for us to go out and take a look. So I will see about scheduling something with them. Let's see. Going back to correspondence. We have correspondence from Water and Wetland. They are the company who is doing the Lake Nipmuc water treatment on a yearly basis for us. It's getting close to budget time, and talking with them about how much we're going to be paying them. We will see about having that at a future meeting. I said that we've got all these other public hearings, and they laughed and said they could wait another month before we actually had them come in for a conversation with us.
no, but we should get informed to use that for when we talk about Lake Nipmuc.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
What else, the Lake
That was one of my
21st?
questions. We're talking about
That is
phosphorus.
scheduled with Board of Health,
That's in
yes.
all the fertilizer.
Tuesday,
We're
February.
Yeah.
using on the lake.
Yes, and that's why Dan Beyer is very interested, because too much phosphorus means he has to close the beach.
Right.
We have correspondence from Greg Buckingham of Buckingham Architectural Design. In fact, they just dropped off. They are going through the paperwork process of generating a Mass DEP number, and will be coming to us at a future meeting for a notice of intent at 35 Taft Avenue. So that will be showing up at a future agenda. Correspondence with Elizabeth Newlands and Scott Kemp about a site walk. Mass DEP will be conducting a site walk sometime this spring for our conservation restrictions. I'm waiting for them to come back with the proposal for what that date is, and then the commissioners will get informed and we'll be able to meet them during that.
They're from DEP? This
It's
is
the
a
part
first.
of maybe it's not Mass DEP, maybe it's another Department of Fisheries and Wildlife, but there's somebody who I got an email from. If you check your email and mention.
Okay, because, yeah, we got a grant and, that's, yeah.
We received an email 2 weeks ago from Ted Steves about tree flagging on Quissit Road. He was concerned because Quissit Road is a scenic roadway, and normally if someone is going to cut down trees or move stone walls, you have to go to the planning board. I got a response from the Mendon tree warden saying that he was working closely with the electric company because they were dead trees and they were considered to be very hazardous for the electrical lines and falling on the road. So I said, okay, Conservation Commission's out of it because it's the planning board in any case. So the two of them would go off and work out whether there were any live trees that were inadvertently flagged to be chopped down. And then correspondence from the lawyer's office. And basically what I'm going to respond is say that you are taking point on following up on the 2021 action, and they may end up calling or emailing you directly.
Okay.
So if you talk with them, send an email or to the Concom members so we know what's up with that.
So Karen Friedman is a lawyer?
Lurie Friedman, I believe, is a law firm. That's what I saw from
Okay.
LinkedIn, and she was asking for information. Again, an email from her is in.
Okay.
There's been a lot of email going back and forth in
I can
that
imagine.
mailbox, but if you search for her name, you'll be able to find it.
She focuses on environmental, or is it just norm?
I did not get any information. She sent a short email asking for information about, and as I said, the email's in there and you can take a look at it.
Okay.
All right, next action is to accept the meeting minutes of January 26, 2023. This is longer than the usual sort of email, and the reason is because I very specifically wanted to capture all of the back and forth that we had between Blue Water and us about the Amazon warehouse, the back and forth that we had with Peter Lavoie about 7375 Jackson. And so...
But supposedly it's...
Well, the 23 Cape Road is of interest, public interest, so that's why I wanted to get the meeting minutes for that done so that we can get into the public record what the questions were we asked and specifically what their answers were on these. So any questions about that document? It's a two pieces of paper with double-sided.
Very thorough, Carl.
Yeah, it was
wonderful job.
4 hours of my life on Saturday going
think.
through the video and transcribing the important parts.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 23rd, or 26th.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I wasn't
Okay,
here for that.
moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're abstaining?
I have to abstain.
Right, okay, so because of the way you count votes, that passes unanimously. Okay, so today is 2/9/23.
The 9th.
23. So those minutes will be getting uploaded to the Mendon Town website, and then that will be something that people can, interested member of the communities will be able to reference going forward. All right. We have a open hearing for 3537 Hastings Street, 1820 Washington Street, DEP 218831. We have a email request from the applicant earlier today to continue the discussion to a future meeting. As I said at the beginning, they have now received their notification and they are having their engineer work on an updated plan, at which point they would come before us and present it. So Peter, I believe you and Damon are recusing on this one.
Recusing myself, yes.
So I need one of you to make a motion and the other to second to continue this
I'll
hearing.
continue.
Okay, which one's
I'll
moving
make a
and which
motion
one's
that we
second?
continue 3537 Hastings Road, 18 and 20
But what
Washington
part
Street.
though? Because last time I went on a site walk, the only thing that was there was the grocery store, not the houses.
Well, that'll be very interesting for them to come in with their plan and we'll ask them about it.
Okay.
And, okay, so that will now be continued. 23 Cape Road, we did 73 and 75 Blackstone.
Oh, I'm
we
sorry,
did.
second, I'm sorry. So getting used to the government things you're supposed to say.
Another correspondence we got is from Gerald Bullock. Are you here still?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to come up to the table? Sorry it took so long, but.
Yeah, I think you have some videos and that kind of stuff. 9 Gerald Bullock, 9 Edward Road. And I came to the committee meeting last May 5th and kind of briefly talked about my problem with water running off of the solar fields area. This is on, is it 35 Cape Road?
Yes,
Yeah,
the solar panel
okay.
farm is.
So it's a soccer field and then there's the solar field. And these are videos that were taken, shows the solar field, and that's the buffer zone that of about 50 foot. And that's water that has accumulated. What I'm saying is that with the slope of the land that they've graded and whatever, I'm getting runoff. There's one video there of July 9th. And that's what's sitting there. And that one was on October 27th, 2021.
The video up here says 42522.
I'm sorry.
The name of the file is 42522, this one.
425. Oh, yes, okay, that's the, yeah, okay.
This is the one from
All right,
September.
if we go in order, yeah, this is July 9th, 2021.
So the
And
stone wall, is that the property boundary?
that's my property boundary. And
So
the
that never
solar-
happened before, the solar field one?
Not like that,
See, it's a prime example of changing hydrology.
not like that, you know, it's, and the solar field from that stone wall back is 50 foot of what they provided as the.
That's your horseshoe pit?
That's my horseshoe pit, yeah. Yes. So, you know, after that,
Yeah.
after that, my
Yeah.
wife and I, we were walking to the back just because there was a bunch of noise from the equipment back there, which turned out to be the air conditioning turning on and off. But we walked back there and there's like a chipped wood that they filled in, and we sunk up to our knees of it. Well, soon after that is when, let's see, it would have been in October of 2021, a tree came down, and that's one of the
Yeah,
the
that was
videos there.
That was
Yeah,
video A.
yeah, I think you already showed that, right. See, now that's the base of the tree.
It looks like
Oh, wow.
groundwater
That's underwater.
The fact is, I got
What kind of tree
a
was
few
that?
photos. The tree came down probably about 20 feet from our deck.
Is there any wetland around there? I mean, that's stream running. Is there a wetland?
It's just soft and wet. Just soft
Oh, it's
and
an
wet.
oak.
That back.
Those are tough.
We have a person in the audience, yeah?
Hi, my name's Diane Howell. I live next door to Jerry. Water was flowing down his yard, flows down into my yard.
Yeah.
And I have, when it's really heavy rain, I have a nice good-sized puddle in my backyard, but then as it will soak down into
Live
the
tree
ground.
too, so.
It is wet and marshy.
That's
I
tough.
have a lot of moss growing all over my yard.
Usually they have
It's
deep
just
roots.
wet
Yeah.
and mossy and marshy down there. Any time of the year, you can walk around our neighborhood and on all the drains, you can hear water running through the drains. I don't care if it's a drought, if it's winter, summer, whatever, you can hear the water running through the drains.
So what address is the solar field? This isn't the solar field that we're looking at 140, right? This is,
Off
This
of
is the
140.
one that-
Yeah,
Same one,
you know,
the soccer
you were
field?
there.
The soccer field.
Didn't you go there and you made comments about the wall, and right over the wall, it's really wet now, that it,
down at the bottom, yeah.
that's this.
Okay.
So, you know, the warehouse project is just
To the
beyond
north,
that.
yeah.
Right, it's just, it abuts that, doesn't
That's
it?
right. Yeah, but the solar field
Right.
on the other side there. Okay. So, you know, why are we having to deal with this? I mean, was it poor engineering? I mean, you would have thought all the check marks were off the boxes of the requirements were all approved and everything. So,
Yeah, I would say, you can say it's poor engineering because they probably said, no, there's no impervious surface under the panels, it's gonna be grass, and that they're not disturbing. That's the general answer on all these solar
Yeah.
panels. That, and if there's no wetlands nearby, we wouldn't review it. I don't know who would review the drainage.
Well, isn't it the soccer field
here's-
though, because that's in like a turf, artificial turf?
So set people's perspective.
Remember when I
Yep.
showed you that?
This is 23 Cape Road.
Yeah,
project
yeah,
where they built the little house. This
Oh,
is
okay.
the
That
solar
was
panel
kind of
farm,
from my time.
and your house is along.
right there.
Your house as well. Okay,
Right.
so There's water flowing out of this site,
Buy
and
cakes
it's
from
different
First
from before they put in the solar farm.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so, Peter, is this another letter you're willing to write to the current owner of that property?
Yeah, but it's a different, if there's no wetland, we don't have enforcement for flooding downstream. I don't know who you go to get satisfaction. It's a planning board
You have to
issue.
hire a lawyer.
You got to, yeah, unfortunately,
You have to have a lawyer, and the lawyer will tell you how to address that.
we would have to look at the wetland, our order of conditions. There must have been an order of conditions with the solar panel. I guess there's a wetland in the back.
This was the big turtle, oh, sorry, can't say turtle. This was the endangered species area, resource area. So they did come before us as part
Yeah.
of that. I don't, this was before my time, so I don't know if they
So
had the
that-
wetlands.
That was all trees before.
Yes.
And now they've taken the trees, obviously, you're like Avatar coming in and grinding up the trees. But the tree that fell onto our property, it bore the full blunt of the wind because there's no other trees there buffering it. So, I'm wondering when's the next one coming down, so.
So the stone wall is along here, is that?
Yes, this
Okay.
probably about 50 foot or so from what you see of this solar field.
And then I don't know if this is getting into Tim's issue, because he's always blamed it on the soccer fields. So I don't know if the soccer fields run off as well, and then it's all contributing, right? They're all upstream.
Well,
Right,
It-
they paved the parking lot when they weren't supposed to.
That
The soccer
probably
field was
didn't
supposed
help,
to be
yeah.
all gravel.
Isn't
yeah,
it turf?
when they,
The field
From
is
the-
not the
field
parking
is
lot.
turf, but not the parking lot. It was supposed to be
Right.
gravel and now it's paved.
But if
Oh,
it's
okay.
turf, it has underground drainage, and it drains the drainage.
Oh, okay, I don't know.
So the planning board should have designed that parking lot with enough drainage to handle the water coming off the parking lot from the ball fields. I don't know what drainage study was done with the solar
Looks like it
panels.
was
well,
before the.
I know that when they're going through a review for the solar field, that the topic of all the snow pushed off of the soccer field were ending up in the southwest corner of that field. And then the solar field said they put in a berm to prevent that water from coming down.
Yeah.
I guess that's what that is there. That's the berm, I guess.
Can I show you this?
Oh, sure.
Anybody want to come over? Can I come over to you?
Come in-
Go to
come in
the,
middle
go to
area.
Carlton, come in,
Oh.
chair.
Thank you.
Come on in the middle area and you can show all of us.
So I guess the bottom line is that I just go to a lawyer, huh?
The other day,
Ah.
yeah, to show you how.
You might
close-
want to begin to
My
investigate
backyard
that.
ends
I'm
with
going to be
this
pursuing this, and
Yeah.
I'll ask
And
DEP
there's
as
the
to
solar
what,
panels.
because
Okay.
we think this
Okay,
issue
so
would be
that
coming up
shows you
elsewhere,
there.
so.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to show you how,
Yep.
really how close.
Yeah, if you want to, if you mail that to concom@mendonma.gov, I'll put it in the same folder as this one, so that we'll be able to look at it at future meetings.
I mean, wetlands do shift all the time. They develop, they disappear, they develop, so there might be something there at this time that could be under, but we don't know.
Spring, because where the water can come up.
Yeah. I'm not sure at this time until I looked into it. It was before my time too, but yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, so that got continued. We also have a recent correspondence that 35 Taft Avenue will be coming before us with an NOI when they get their number as well.
Yeah.
And talked about that.
Did you mention that plastic thing?
Oh.
No, I'm wondering.
Oh, glad.
Okay. The last, and I hope final one before we adjourn, Tom Robertson had a question about storm runoff into his property from 9 Applewood Lane. He followed up saying that he has settled the matter with his neighbor, and so it's not an issue for us.
Oh, that's a good thing.
All right, any further business that people can think of before we finish for the night.
Yes, one more question.
Please, yep.
I'm sorry. But there's a environmental barrier that exists there.
The riprap? I
Between
mean,
the solar field and
The silt fence,
it's still there. So when does that come down?
it depends what it is. If it's a silt fence, it
Oh,
should,
no, it's a black plastic
Yeah.
strip with a.
With the stake, with the
like
wood stakes.
bundled,
well,
So
the,
they put a
the
wall
coir is this tube.
Yeah. It's a
That stays, and that'll eventually decompose. If there's a silt fence with plastic, that should be taken off.
The
So
plastic.
you don't want to take off the tubes, but the silt fence should be removed once they've gotten a certificate of completion, which I
Yeah, and that's
suppose they've had.
one of these here shows it. I would barely see it there, but
Yeah. Well, the thing is it's still doing any good? I don't know, you know,
well,
with the water. it's-
what's comical is that when the solar field went in, they were talking about the fence, they were going to leave 6 inches above or open so the critters can get through, okay? But then they put up the plastic barrier.
You can't have
So-
both ways. No.
So that's,
Yeah, if the job is done, it should be taken up, but I'm not sure the job is done there, but I guess we signed up on it.
Okay, if you, here's, I want to look at you as my letter writer. Can you take that picture, mail it to them and say, the silt fence is still there, it doesn't need to be there anymore. And in fact, should be removed for habitat reasons.
Can you send that, do you have that picture where you can send an email?
yes, I
That
can.
way there you don't have to give up your picture. You can
Right,
just.
I will draft a letter if you can attach the picture to it.
Okay, so.
I'd be glad to give you this.
No.
Okay, I'll send
Want
it.
electronically.
We want to do this electronically, so if you can mail concom@mendonma.gov that picture, and then it will get attached to when, as evidence, when Peter sends off something to whoever
Wonderful.
owns the solar farm these days.
Thank you.
The picture of that river wouldn't be bad to send either.
Oh, well, we already have that online.
Okay.
What I downloaded just today about the issues with the,
One of the things I've been spending copious
It's
amounts
like
of my free time
endless.
is organizing our conservation areas, so.
I already downloaded a host of studies from,
I've gone in and
Yeah.
regularized the naming system that Maya had to be more the standards. We're slowly in the process of going through and following up on all of the minutes that she had started revising. And when we hire a new clerk, the goal is that they will take
So
all
yes,
of our records from the past 2 years and stick it into all of the historical files. There's a folder way down here at the bottom called index.doc, where I'm saying what all of the various subfolders are so that when we get a new clerk, as part of their 10 hours a week when they're not getting ready for meetings, they can go through and start filing things into the historical folders. And also updating the master index of DEP file numbers.
Well, I'll make a motion to commend our chair for excellent work. And a
Yes.
second motion to adjourn.
Yeah, this is a very interesting document. Bill McHenry was maintaining this, and we need to get this updated. This is a list of every single DEP member.
Yep.
Mendon DEP, we start with 218 because that's our town number. So this goes all the way, starts at the first DEP
Number one.
number 1.
Yeah.
And,
what year was that?
I don't know, you can go look it up online.
No,
And
I'll
you-
try.
there's
We
this-
used to file, Jim Stewart,
Have a
Hartford
good
Ave
night.
West. We used to do it by streets. That's our filing system.
Yeah.
I don't know if our current system is still that way or whether we file by number. But we used to file by street.
You can see it was maintained up until 2021.
Unfortunately, it is. The clerk gets.
would you like 10 hours a week?
There's no way, how can you get all that done in 10 hours?
I don't think you can
I
either.
don't think 10 hours.
No, there's no need to be more than 10 hours advertised.
Yeah.
say 16.
Okay, so, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I made that motion.
Okay, is it a second?
I'll second.
I'll second, third, and fourth.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. I'll stop the recording.
It's 31 Concord Avenue West. I don't know why.
Thank you, people on the call who were attending, if you're still here.
Not that many, there was like 8 or 9.
Three of us, stop recording, Cal.
I don't know.